Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Samueli. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. And today's Christmas Day. Merry Christmas to our fellow Gagglers. I hope everyone's having a wonderful time, enjoying a wonderful spread with family and friends, drinking excellent drink. And so, we're not going to take up too much of your time.
But we thought it was important too.
Exactly. But we thought it was important because there has been a major news story that broke within the last 24 hours. And it comes from a country that we followed quite closely, namely Serbia. As we had expected, the election in Serbia, which was obviously going to be won by Alexander Vučić, has been challenged by the opposition, who had been defeated quite decisively. It wasn't a close election. Having been defeated quite decisively, right away up went the scream that there was cheating, fraud, theft, which was then given oxygen by the usual cast of characters, the Western leaders, including, of course, Annalena Baerbock, the German foreign minister, who said that the results in Serbia were unacceptable. It was just an unacceptable.
German foreign minister.
Exactly, it's unacceptable. Exactly. Yes. Yes, Baerbock.
The same woman that said she doesn't care what her voters think.
Okay. Exactly. Yes, Baerbock has really brought back some, happy memories of olden days of Germany. She's very, very good at.
There's air quotes there.
Exactly. She's very good at telling countries what they must and must not do. Anyway, so we had the election. The opposition cried fraud. The various kind of OSCE observers said, yeah, there are a lot of irregularities, and again, European leaders, this is not at all good.
Which, of course, they all prepared before the election. But anyway.
Exactly, the response was prepared. So now we have to sort of remember that the color revolution started in Yugoslavia. The first one was in 1996, when there was again the cry that, oh, the local elections were rigged. And then Milosevic caved. He made concessions after that election. But the big one was in 2000 that led to the overthrow of Slobodan Milosevic. And then, of course, it was copied elsewhere, which is you have an election, you lose the elections, up goes the cry, fraud, fraud. The Western media, of course, repeat the cries. Western politicians then demand the election be rerun. We have to rerun the election.
And legitimizes violence.
Exactly. And
very important.
Violence is absolutely crucial, because once you start the violence, the whole purpose is to then provoke an overreaction on the part of the local police, security forces, and then that becomes a cry. There'll be Borrell and Baerbock and others screaming, oh, this is horrific. We can't take this violence anymore.
There must be new elections.
Exactly, and that's going to be the case in new elections. So yesterday, the opposition, which goes by the name of Serbia Against Violence, entirely appropriate. That's what it's called, Serbia Against Violence. That's the name of this united opposition. Just like
it was newly minted from the summer, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly. That's because what happened in the summer was there were a couple of mass shootings, very tragic. In both cases, again, just as it happens everywhere else, a mentally deranged, very young man.
Too much American Netflix. Sorry, everyone.
Yes, exactly. We had something like this in Prague the other day. So we had these mass shootings of children, and up went the cry from the opposition that this is somehow the fault of the government. It wasn't clear the logic. Well, how was this the fault of the government? But then there were these mass protests demanding elections. So Vučić finally said, okay, we'll have elections, and the opposition lost, and now they're resorting to violence. So yesterday they tried to break into the town hall in Belgrade, and
very violently.
Very violently.
And they from the footage I saw earlier today, assaulting peace officers as well.
That's right.
These are nasty people. Nasty people.
Yeah. Serbia Against Violence. So we're going to get more and more of these the cries. We need to rerun the election, just as we had that in Ukraine in 2004. We had something similar in Georgia, I think 2003, when the overthrow of Shevardnadze. And this was entirely predictable. I mean,
we predicted it, George.
We predicted it. They follow the same script, time and again. You have an election, you run the election, then you scream foul, fraud, cheating, and then the usual cast of characters, then give it oxygen and apply.
Well, what kind of interesting too during the course of the last 24 hours, we had Vučić and his parties saying they thanked foreign intelligence services for tipping them off. And then the story kind of evolved, and it was, we got to thank the Russians for tipping. So we went through an iteration in 24 hours, okay?
That's right.
Which is, of course, they knew that everything was stable. So we have the winner of the election able to take the knife out, twist it, or turn it around and twist it and throw it right back at them, okay? Okay, because of course, these are pro-Russian, they cannot be legitimized and all of this, which is all a Western generated narrative, okay? I mean, people remember the bombing of their country, George, okay? And they associate the West with NATO for good reason.
Exactly, exactly right. And what's interesting is the arc of Vučić. Vučić was a member of the Nationalist Party, which was once led by Vojislav Šešelj. It was aligned for some of the time, was also opposed by Milosevic's Socialist Party. But they were nationalists. They criticized Milosevic for not doing enough to protect the Serbs. Now, Vučić came to power, I think it was 2010, and the West saw him as the person who will deliver for the West. Yeah. The previous guy, the sort of, they called themselves the Democratic Opposition, even though they'd been in power for more than 10 years, they still called themselves the opposition. They were close to delivering for the West, but ultimately they were just too unpopular to be able to do it. So they're like, hey, we'll get this former nationalist who had been a member of the Milosevic government. He'll deliver for us. It's like
the cover story. Great.
Exactly. It's like the Nixon goes to China. Hey, this is the person that we can trust to do it. And Vučić probably, he would have done it if you just let him leave him to his devices. But the Serbs, unfortunately, for the West, they're just not buying it. They don't want to give up on Kosovo. They don't want to give up on Russia. So all this pressure that's been applied on Vučić, hey, you've got to align your foreign policy with NATO and the EU. You've got to impose sanctions on Russia. And then Vučić hems and haws, well, we're going to look into it.
Well, we did a couple of videos on that, I remember.
Yeah, we have.
Being quite honest, we both expressed a great deal of disgust. I mean, either you want the job or you don't, okay?
Yeah, exactly. And so, he even signed the so-called NATO individual action plan, which doesn't mean that you actually aspire to be a member of NATO. Theoretically, it's all about, well, we will cooperate with NATO. So
they don't get to go to the real buffet. They get the finger food and the grape drink as opposed to grape juice. Exactly. So grape drink and a couple of finger food over there on the patio, okay? And you can look in.
That's right. The kiddies table. This is where the grown-ups sit, and this is where the kiddies sit. So he signed that. He continually repeats, "Oh, we want to join the EU," even though it's spelled out to him time and again that if you want to join the EU, you have to do two things. You have to recognize the independence of Kosovo, and you've got to drop your whole friendship with Russia. You've got to get with our program. And well, I don't really want to do that. Well, then you can't join the EU. But I want to join the EU. Well, you can't.
Well, but that is a perspective. And George and I remember the European Economic Community, which I was a big fan of, okay? Because it actually produced results, okay? And that's what the Serbs want. They want to be part of that. But, to go along with your entire agenda, oh, we see how other people have reacted to it. We're not interested in that, but we're interested in trade. Trade is good for it, creates prosperity, and that's good. And I think Serbia is discriminated against so much in that regard because it won't take on the political agenda or social agenda.
Right. Exactly. But the sticking point is obviously Russia. There's a very big sticking point because an important reason as to why the West turned so viciously against Serbia in the 90s. The Serbs were kind of stunned by this. They didn't really understand it. They'd always been held to be the good guys. There was on the Allied side in 2 world wars. They were part of the Yugoslavia, which was stood up to Stalin. Hey, I thought we were the good. I thought you liked us. And so no, we don't like you. Because they were seen right away as being Russia's cat's paw in the Balkans. Somehow, this is Russia's little brother. So as long as Serbia is there, then Russia maintains a presence in the Balkans. And the West just turned with a fury and a vengeance against the Serbs.
Remember Madeleine Albright? I think she called them nasty people or
nasty,
something.
yes. And then Holbrooke, what did he call them? I think he called them shits or something like that. Even more violent language
from a diplomat. Thank you very much.
Exactly. So that's in a way the problem. They're not going to accept Serbia without Serbia's abandoning Russia. Serbia has to abandon it. And there were stories that were being put out in the summer, which Serbia is going to be selling arms to Ukraine. Serbia is going to do that. Now, Vučić denied this. And, I haven't seen any evidence that Serbia has provided anything to Ukraine. But you can see how that they've been pressing him. Hey, why don't you provide arms to Ukraine? So that's all a part of this pressure that they're applying. And they think Vučić is going to be, eventually be compliant. But he can't do it because public opinion in Serbia is just not going to tolerate it.
Well, he certainly can't do it now. Okay. Yeah. But it's one of these things is that these Euro libs, as I like to call them, they can't win elections, so they have to do it in a fraudulent way. Right. And George is right. I mean, it's interesting that that a so-called colored revolution was foiled at the epicenter of the current iteration of colored revolutions that we have. So there's some nice irony there. But these people, they don't want to recognize the vote. Okay, the vote doesn't go your way, then it's something wrong. That is, unfortunately, that's a trend all over the world right now. Okay, and it's been given legitimacy because Western governments do it all the time with their own people.
That's exactly right. And of course, it's very interesting that they make all these claims of the fraud. But they never provided any evidence for this. So they said, Serbia has been bussing in people, the government has been bussing in people from Bosnia and Herzegovina, but they haven't provided any evidence for this. I mean, where's the evidence that they bussed anybody in? So that somebody voted in this election who wasn't supposed to vote, somebody whose name is not on the electoral register. There've been no evidence of this. But they can rely on the media immediately to repeat. The BBC repeats, the New York Times repeats, and everyone, they were bussing in people from Bosnia and Herzegovina. Where's your evidence? That's the kind of thing the Serbs would do.
It's up to journalists to figure that out. I'm not,
Exactly. And then they say, there was ballot stuffing. Now, let me think, ballot stuffing. Now, where have we come across with ballot stuffing? I mean, so the same people who tell you that the 2020 election in the United States was absolutely the cleanest, fairest, most transparent election ever will then tell us that, oh my God, there was ballot stuffing here. And there was undue influence by the media. The media played an undue role in this election. Well, imagine that. The media will tend to be pro-government as opposed to the media elsewhere, which play a very undue role.
And of course, any message that is counter to that narrative is misinformation by definition. And of course, the Russians are behind it. I mean, it's too simplistic. It just doesn't work. And you can't pull the same rabbit out of the hat over and over again. It's people, and they figured it out. I mean, they were watching I think that, I think you agree with me. The Russians were asleep at the switch in 2014 in November in Kiev, because this is exactly the same thing on steroids, because it was so horrifically violent.
Yeah.
And they were just asleep at the wheel. Okay, they should have been aware of what was going on. And I blame Yanukovych too, also.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's exactly right. And particularly in the case of what happened then in the winter of 2014, was that this was a rerun of 2004. They'd already seen what happened in 2004, how an election was overturned. There'd been 2 rounds, Yanukovych won, and then the Supreme Court said, oh, well, basically we need another election, so we'll have a 3rd election. We're not going to have a 4th election. We just have a 3rd election. Okay, that's it. Yanukovych lost. So they'd seen what what happened before, and then they were just simply waited around. I mean, it was obvious then in 2013-14 that this wasn't about the EU association agreement. The idea that you can get people out on the streets day after day, night after night in the freezing cold because of some damn EU association agreement. It's absurd. Of course, it was always about overthrowing Yanukovych.
Yep. Illegally. Yeah. This is the wrinkle all the time, is that these people think that their goals, their ambitions are noble, but they cannot be noble if they're done through nefarious, illegal, even questionably moral ways. Okay, and so that's what makes them such hypocrites and very, very dangerous, because if you take off the mask, these are authoritarians. They will force their agenda on you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the other day we had Josep Borrell, our good friend, saying, I'm very worried about the elections next year. He said, I'm really afraid that these right-wing populists are going to come to power. So he's already expressing concern, not just about the European elections, but of all the elections that are going to be taking place. He's very worried about the outcome. Obviously, he's worried about the United States. It's very odd, because you think, well, if you're a politician, shouldn't you kind of then address the concerns? I mean, if you're worried what's going to happen in a year's time, then your task is to make yourself appealing to the voters. Not just say, well, I'm very, very worried about what's going to happen, which suggests that you're going to find some way to cancel results that that you don't really like.
Well, Borrell is one of those very interesting characters. Every time I hear his name, it puts a big smile on my face. Okay, because we could just talk endlessly about his nonsense. Okay. I mean, apparently he can speak like 5 languages in Spanish. Okay, I mean it's amazing. All right, the people that Annalena Baerbock, when is she an expert on democracy? But is she an expert on anything?
Yeah.
What was her portfolio before? Do you know?
What you mean? What did she have hold before? Or
yeah, I mean, if you like women's affairs or something.
I don't think she ever had I don't know. This was the first time she's been in government.
No, I think she was like a deputy somebody. Okay.
Right, because I don't think the Greens have been in government at any time. I think
okay, maybe you're right. Okay, then where did you get her foreign policy credentials?
And again, it was very interesting that she wanted that job. She absolutely insisted on getting that job. And when she had the coalition talks with Sergeant Schultz, I want this job, and that's it seems like the Greens.
I'm sorry, I was thinking of Liz Truss. You're right. You're right.
Oh yeah, Liz Truss. Yes, no, you're right.
She had like families, women and families.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Liz Truss was, of course, with David Cameron. The Tories decided that they wanted to become, woke and metrosexual and with it and cool and so on. So they decided, it's a woman, good, let's promote her right away. The moment you win an election, boom, you have a job in the government. So she was just promoted because she was a woman, and of course her total incompetence then became manifest. But yeah, I mean that's the brilliance of David Cameron. But yeah, I mean, but this is the way they play this. And again, we have election after election, which give results that elites don't like. And then they kind of find ways that they can cancel them. We have the tools, as Ursula von der Leyen.
Well, let's replay what they wanted to have happen in Belgrade actually happened in 2014. So you have these horrific street violence, intentional. You bring in snipers to hit randomly all kinds of people,
Right.
make it look like chaos. Oh, we need a new election.
That's
and then Yanukovych stupidly, foolishly said, okay, with no legal predicate whatsoever. Okay. And once you agree to that, then you're gone.
Yeah. Absolutely. It was shocking. And again, you'd have to say it should have been obvious to Russia, and Russia should have made it clear to Yanukovych that you have to break this up. You have to, use whatever force is necessary to end this nonsense at Maidan. We will support you, even if it leads to, casualties when you break this up. We will provide you with diplomatic support. It would still have been a lot better than what came by dragging this out. And then you had, how many people? 100 people were killed by those snipers. It was horrific. And again, these are tried and true tactics. The Americans have played that game many, many times. This is what they're very good at. Staging protests, using violence, and then screaming, by blaming the violence on the authorities. This is what they did that in Guatemala. They've done this many times before.
There must be no violence.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And
then meanwhile, Victoria Nuland, speaking with Jeffrey Piot, he's designing the new government.
That's right. Exactly. Klitsch is out. Yats is the guy. That's right. And so here, we're having this rerun in Belgrade. One would hope that Vucic will have learned his lessons, but I have no real hope for Vucic, because Vucic has been around for many years. I mean, he was there in 2000 at the time of the coup against Milosevic. So it's like you think by now the people that you're dealing with. You can't keep being surprised by these developments.
I don't know, George. I don't know how many Serbian Euro libs you've come across. They're a nasty lot. They're really a nasty lot of people. Yes. So arrogant.
Yes.
They're so arrogant, and they're so self-hating as well. Okay, it's really an obnoxious group of people. I've unfortunately have had the occasion to come across them sometimes. They're more European than anyone else. Did you know that, George?
Yes, you're absolutely right. They're an extremely nasty lot, and back in 2000, they were ready to kill Milosevic. They were just ready to murder him there and then. It was only that essentially the military stepped in and said that you can't kill him. And that saved his life, because they wanted the Ceausescu option. They just kill Milosevic there and then in 2000, and the Americans obviously wanted that. But then, and this was the most disgusting thing ever, that the Serbs then handed over Milosevic to the ICTY, to NATO's court. NATO, the power that had bombed them, they handed him over to them and said, okay, well, you deal with him. I mean, but these were the people. These were the Djindjic and all these horrible, these Serb liberals, these Europhile Serb liberals. This is a shame that they brought upon their nation to do that.
Yeah, and look at their resumes, everyone. To a person, Soros programs, exchange programs with the U.S. All these things here. I mean, they fund it, and that's how they do. They create this cadre of people, this elite capture, and they are loyal. Oh my God.
Yeah.
They have no individual ideas of their own. They have the agenda, and they repeat you can't even have a conversation with them. They speak in gobbledygook. They speak in bumper stickers.
Yep.
And it's all divorced from reality. And people, well, the hell with them.
Yep, that's right. Exactly. And they're ready to do NATO's bidding.
Bomb my country. Yeah. Bomb my country. That's for freedom, for democracy.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what they were doing. And they brought shame on their country. Eventually they were rejected. But it's so all pervasive among Serbia's elite that somehow Serbia has to be a part of these European transatlantic structures. That's why Vucic, he himself continues to repeat this. And you think, don't you realize what these people want from you? They're not interested in you. They want you basically completely subservient, follow their diktats, basically use this cannon fodder. They have no interest at all in Serbia or any aspect of it other than basically a forward base for NATO.
Right. Turn us into a Euro parking lot. That's better than what we have now.
Exactly. Exactly.
And they're doing it with Moldova.
That's right. That's right. Because now we have the announcement by Moldova's president, who has been such a great success, Maya Sandu. She's now a candidate, has candidate member status for the EU, and she's running for re-election. And she's already said that the opposition-led towns or provinces will not be getting any EU funds. So she obviously is expecting EU money coming in. Well, you won't be getting any because you're part of the opposition. Okay, nice. That's just as long as it's democratic. We just get to keep this EU money for me and my political supporters, but the opposition, they don't get any of the EU money.
Yep, just this straight up cronyism and pay to play. That's we'll see how that pans out. If you're singled out as nothing for you, well, what stake do you have in the game? Okay, maybe just the contrary. You can muck things up for them. Okay, this is such an odious. Moldova is a very small, very poor place. Seeing them play these kind of games, why don't you get your house together first? Okay. And because as long the European Union will save us, okay, we'll become a part of NATO and we'll become rich. We've heard this, George, for 30 years.
That's right. That's exactly right. And it just shows how poisonous and how divisive the EU has been, because actually the way the EU moves into countries, they do it in a very divisive way. So it's done by, well, these are the people that we support, and if you support us and turn against them, the faster you're going to get with us. They did this in the case of, again, Yugoslavia. They helped break up Yugoslavia by saying, hey, if you're with us, just turn against the Serbs. That's
and you know what? We got Samantha Power on speed dial. She can be here with her open checkbook. Come on. It's absolutely true, you guys. It's absolutely true.
That's exactly right. And of course, now in Moldova, we don't know what's going to happen there because, she's not exactly that popular. So the color revolution scenario could well play out there if she loses the next election. I mean, I don't think, I think there's a good chance that she'll lose. And then, of course, this guy Dodon, who's of course pro-Russian, he's of course Putin's man. Should he win the election, exactly the same scenario will play out in Moldova.
Absolutely, you can go to the bank on that. Absolutely, okay. Our people can never lose in a fair election. Okay, no,
right.
So, but again, we started out, George and I predicted this to the T. It's interesting that they did it during Christmas too, which, is keep it off when no one's paying really attention except for the perpetrators of this attempted color revolution. Right. So, Christmas present, we got rid of this tyrannical government, and we're on our path to the European Union. Right. That's what they wanted to do. I'll be very interested in the backstory about how the Russian intelligence services tipped them off, because that'll be an interesting.
That would be very interesting. Yeah, and you're right, because the person who said that we were tipped off by the Russians is the prime minister, this Barnabas, and she's not a big nationalist. She doesn't, she's not like Vucic, who goes back, a generation. I mean, she's, kind of a modern technocrat, whatever. So there's no reason for her to say the Russians tipped us off, unless That's what happened. I mean, it wasn't just, hey, just doing a kind of a hello to the Russians. I mean, no, I mean, obviously that the Russians knew what was happening. They had their information, and I think that is really interesting. What's also interesting is that they turn this around, this fraud and so on, when the election isn't even close. It's the same thing that happened in Belarus. It's not even close. I mean, you can cry fraud when the vote is close, but here, I mean,
I've always been challenged about the whole Lukashenko thing. Did he get 93% of the vote? And my reaction is always the following: did he get 50% plus one?
right,
Because that's all that counts.
right.
It's all that counts.
Right.
So you're saying this, I can't even remember her name now. You're saying she got
Tikhanovskaya, yeah.
You're telling me she got 50% plus one. You're really okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Really, okay. Yeah.
And the media report, oh, she really won that election. Yeah,
right.
She really won that election. Exactly. She got 50 plus 1% of the vote. Yeah, right.
Demographically, if you look at the demographic of the electorate, that's impossible. These people are, it's one of the Belarus took a very different path than its neighbors. It's basically still state-run, the state-run economy. And these are employees of the state. Hey, they're not going to kick their boss out, okay? No way.
Right. Exactly.
Considering everything that happened with shock therapy in Russia in the 1990s, Ukraine is an absolute mess right now. Okay, in the Baltic republics, for all the fear-mongering, their youth are leaving, okay, for Australia, for Ireland, for whatever, okay? Right. And Belarus is right there in the middle, and they're looking around saying, we're going to keep doing what we're doing, okay?
Yeah, exactly. It's been a very successful country. Also, they look at the chaos around them. I mean, if you try overthrowing Lukashenko, you just know we're going to have the same thing here. We're going to have the same thing that we had in Ukraine, and the Baltic states. We're going to have some kind of civil war. We're going to have NATO here. We're going to be in the middle of another confrontation with NATO and Russia. These absolutely really terrible things happen when NATO is around. But the strange thing is that NATO is so greedy and so ambitious. If they just be more patient with Vucic, just
well, it's always, I had this conversation with Michael McFaul, because he's talking about the arc of history, and that there's an inevitability of the world embracing Western values and Western style democracy. And my response is, well, then why are you pushing it? If it's inevitable, then why do you have to push it? Just let it happen.
Right. Yeah.
Well, of course, they say they can't accept that as a response. Okay. Right. But they construct the argument as it's inevitable. So if something is inevitable, why do you have to push it?
Well, exactly. And so here's with Vucic, they don't even give him anything. They don't even give him the minimum. I mean, the Vucic said, okay, well, at least give us these association of Serb municipalities in Kosovo. Even that would have been a huge kind of surrender by Serbia to accept that. They're not even going to give him that. So, Vucic, can turn around and say, well, we're not getting anything from them. They just want us to recognize Kosovo, shovel the Serbs who live in Kosovo on the Kosovo jurisdiction, and, the hell with that.
But because that's part of their political DNA is any kind of compromise is you're compromising with evil, you're compromising with primitive people. That's what they cannot in any way, shape, or form compromise. It is there's victory and there's the vanquished. There's nothing in between ever.
There's no, absolutely. That's exactly what it is, and that's why their preferred solution is nearly always to kill someone, because if you kill them, that really teaches them a lesson. They always want the Ceausescu solution.
Particularly the dead one.
Exactly. Hey, this is what's going to happen to you if you defy us. And that's why they were so eager for Milosevic to be killed in 2000, because, hey, this is what you get when you defy us. So
And in 2014, they hunted.
they wanted to do this exactly. I mean, Yanukovych knew exactly what he was doing when he fled for his life. Yeah, he was absolutely fleeing for his life. If he'd hung around for a little bit longer, he would have been hanging on a lamppost. I mean, there's no question about that. That was the whole idea. And this is what you get if you defy us. And so they you know, as I said, there's never any compromise. You have to actually teach these ignorant, stupid people a lesson. You know, we are the masters. We get to call the shots. We are the vanguard of history. And if you,
well, George just said it. He didn't use the right word, but I know what he means. These people are Bolsheviks. They're all Bolsheviks in their heart. Okay, they're anti-intellectual. They abhor their own culture, their own society, just like the Bolsheviks did. Yep. Yeah. And the Bolsheviks didn't like compromising much, did they, George?
No, exactly, and that's it. And they do have that same arrogant assumption. Also, well, this is the history. You know, this is the transatlantic structures, the you know, that liberal new world order, and so on. It's the same kind of claptrap that the Bolsheviks came up with. And then when anyone defies it, anyone says, well, that's not really the way history is moving, well, then we use our tactics, which is the, right, you know, color revolution. Yeah.
We're history's little helper.
That's it. Yeah.
So just imagine, George and I did a very lengthy video yesterday, which I think is one of the best ones we did. I've done on these SOFA agreements. Okay, could you imagine, George, if the colored revolution had been successful, they find whatever successor, you know, put your hand on the Bible or whatever, right, say the oath. Now we got this little SOFA agreement. Would you sign it, please?
Yes. That's it. Yeah, exactly. So, and again, it's very interesting that, you know, they pressed Serbia to sign these this individual NATO action plan, individual membership action plan, or whatever they're called. And so we said, well, that doesn't mean we're actually officially applying for NATO membership, but they were very insistent that you sign something like this, because then once we get rid of you and bring somebody else in, we can build on that and you know, and put in your application for NATO membership.
Could you imagine, you know, this individual action plan, whatever it is? Could you imagine, you know, it's like some kind of declaration, and it's on one page, and then at the very, very end, can barely see it, there's a little asterisk. Okay, then there's 1,500 pages, right, of what it really means. Okay, that's what they do to you all the time. No, we're going to cooperate with NATO. You know, deepening our relationship with NATO. Right. Look at these agreements. It's more than that. So that's, first of all, you give up your firstborn. Okay, right, that's it. That's it. Start.
Yeah. That's exactly. And that was what they were demanding of Yugoslavia in 1999, prior to the start of the bombing at Rambouillet, which they kept secret. They never disclosed it to anyone. And in fact, they only disclosed it to the Serbs pretty much on the last day of the Rambouillet meeting. So in other words, they pretty much said, hey, and can you sign this document with basically a SOFA agreement that we can travel wherever we want and do whatever we want throughout the territory of Yugoslavia. And then, having kept that secret, they said, oh, Milosevic, we gave him a wonderful deal and Milosevic turned it down. What a bastard. He needs to be bombed. And then we kind of found out, well, hey, this isn't very good. And then, of course, they had to quickly scramble. They used that guy, Timothy Garton Ash, you know, your friend who wrote an article in the New York Review of Books. Well, maybe it wasn't such a great idea to make that demand on Milosevic, but Milosevic would have rejected the agreement anyway. You know, he would have rejected it. I mean, it doesn't matter. So this wasn't really the sticking point. It wasn't. You know, you go and tell someone, we're actually going to occupy your country, and you don't have any say in the matter. That wasn't really a
But
sticking
the
point. No,
Serbs know something about ultimatums from great powers.
exactly, exactly. And incidentally, as ultimatums go, this was a harsher ultimatum than Austria-Hungary's ultimatum in during the July crisis. So that was even that was actually milder. I mean, they just said we're going to conduct an investigation as to who killed the Archduke. We're going to conduct it on Serbian territory. They didn't say we're just going to occupy Serbia.
It's so interesting the way they sell themselves, George, is that they're tolerant and they're inclusive.
Right.
They're not. They're the opposite of all of that.
That's right.
They are just, straitjacket here. And you're volunteering. You're getting volunteer to wear our straitjacket. We'll tie it up in the back for you. Okay.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. That's it. And that's very interesting because, of course, when you talk about tolerance and inclusivity, you kind of realize that, well, the very fact that you have to keep mentioning it suggests that you're not tolerant or
Here
inclusive.
we go.
Otherwise, you wouldn't have to talk about it all the
Got
time.
Burrell again, all over again. Okay, we should call it the Burrell discourse or something like that. Okay.
Yes, that's right. Very worried about next year's elections. I'm very, very worried.
We thought it was, I wanted to do a podcast with George anyway today, but we thought this was important enough to do. I think we're probably all alone right now in the ether talking about this because I don't even know what Western media is saying about it because it's still being, they're still engineering their narrative, okay?
Right.
Maybe George and I will catch up later in the week and maybe see how they spun it, okay?
Right.
But
because one other thing. I mean, we saw the violence, but also one of the leaders of this movement, kind of a young woman, is on a hunger strike. Now you can see how manipulative that is. You have a young woman on hunger strike. That's something, boy, the Western media will lap it up. Oh, attractive young woman on a hunger strike. Boy, things must be really bad here. So watch that space. She's not giving up a hunger strike.
Well, George, it's interesting that last night, two of my friends in Belgrade sent me Christmas greetings. They didn't ask for care packages or, food or, if you have any used clothing. Belgrade's a very beautiful city. I love that city. It's very, very nice. Okay. But I wonder how they're going to paint it in Western media. Okay. Because like George and I keep saying, these are they think in totalistic terms. Okay. And of course, this young woman here, which I'm sure she's having happy meals in between interviews. Okay?
Yeah, I'm sure. But they say she's on an IV. Her only food that she's getting is IV. Well, if you're on an IV, then you're not really on a hunger strike. I mean, a hunger strike means what it is. A hunger strike means you're not getting anything. You can't say, well, I'm getting, I'm getting food elsewhere, but that's an ongoing thing. I think these protests are going to be. This is going to be a daily thing, and once Christmas is over and Annalena Baerbock gets back to work, you just watch how she suddenly, she'll go to Belgrade. I have to talk to these protesters and ask them what's going on here.
Well, will she bring apple strudel? Because Victoria Nuland brought cookies, so I mean, maybe it'll be culturally sensitive.
That's exactly.
Do the Serbs have something equivalent?
Yeah, that's right. Maybe she'll bring some bratwurst.
That's one of the tools. One of the tools. All right, everybody. We're gonna wrap it up here. A very, very Merry Christmas to everyone here on Christmas Day. No, this is the day.
This is Christmas Day.
George and I are doing a double header crosstalk tomorrow. Okay, so there's no rest for the wicked, as they say. But anyway, this is the Goggle with Peter and George. We're on local, so please go to thegoggle.locals.com. Even though George is going to be joining me for a double hitter tomorrow in crosstalk, he still tomorrow will have his live stream.
3 p.m. Eastern time. Please join you. Come with comments, criticisms, suggestions, comments, observations, ideas. Everything is welcome. And on the way out the door, think about little Buddy, because Buddy sort of got very interested in all this when talking about apple strudels and bratwurst, and say, yeah, count me in.
He'll eat anything.
We don't want him putting on too much weight. I mean, you know, I know it's Christmas, but we don't want him getting too fat. So you have a few bob in your pocket, whip them out, dunk them in his tip jar. He will, you know, maybe go a little bit short on the bratwurst. We're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can work on the technology, and above all, we'll keep Buddy on a strict diet. So remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.